Tonight on the Saga Vault, we're going Mandalorian. Those mysterious badasses from a galaxy far, far away. Born as a blink-and-you-miss-it myth in the Star Wars Holiday Special, the Mandalorians have evolved into the dominant force of the Disney Star Wars empire. Armor, weapons, prototypes, rare toys, global oddities. Tonight, we're tracing the evolution of the Mandalorians through the merchandise fans love. 4 collectors are bringing their best Mandalorian-themed artifacts to the table. But in the end, only one will find honor in the vault. And your vote counts just as much as each one of ours. This is the way. Let's open the vault. Welcome to the Saga Vault, where the world's most passionate Star Wars collectors bring their most cherished artifacts to our presentation table. Today, we'll be taking a deep dive into the Mandalorians. But first, let's meet our collectors. Vic Wertz, an RPG publisher who likes to build Legos in his home theater designed by Doug Chang, because apparently the only thing he can't afford is a personality.
Aww.
Steve Sansweet, former head of Lucasfilm Fan Relations, a job he created for himself with just a label maker and a laminator. Duncan Jenkins, an obsessed Star Wars collector who's officially banned from entering the Kenner trash dumpsters.
There's no evidence that that was me or anyone that knows me.
Finally, Gus Lopez, a former child actor who's best remembered for having played Cousin Oliver on the Brady Bunch. Great to have you with us, Gus. So what have you brought with you today?
Well, we'll find out.
All right.
Yeah.
Is this a paint by numbers piece?
So this is a design sketch from Jim Swearingen of Kenner for the large size Boba Fett action figure from 1978. He actually drew this April 17th, 1978. So if you think about that for a second, the Star Wars action figures had just started coming out. Star Wars was released 11 months before that, and they were already planning a character for The Empire Strikes Back. And if you look at the design, it actually mirrors the Joe Johnston early concept sketches for Boba Fett. The design changed as they evolved it for The Empire Strikes Back, but it's really amazing to me that Kenner was actually thinking about The Empire Strikes Back line 11 months after Star Wars came out. I've had this piece a really long time. I love it, and this is just one of my top favorite pieces.
Jim Swearingen was really the guy at Kenner who convinced them to do the Star Wars toy line. He read the script early on and convinced Bernie Loomis that this was something they should go after.
Do you know about how soon after this that then they would have switched into the more familiar colors and everything that we...
Yeah, I mean, it would have had to be pretty soon after that because, you know, by later in 1978, you have the holiday special airing and you start to have the mail-away offer for the rocket-firing Boba Fett. So they had to have been updated, you know, sometime in the next few months because...
I did a deep dive on this a couple of years ago, and it was within 2 or 3 months they had the first painted prototype. Well, this design was originally called the Super Trooper, and he was supposed to be a whole squad of guys that looked like this.
Right. And they wound up repurposing that in Rebels, right? In Rebels, you see a group of Mandalorians working for the Empire that have their costumes and they're white.
Yeah.
No ideas get thrown away.
No. Yep.
And the fact that something like this has survived is fantastic. It's so good.
Duncan, you never disappoint, but give it a try anyways.
Sounds good.
We have an opportunity for any one of you guys to be Boba Fett today.
That's pretty awesome.
You have to be able to fit into it.
Very tempting.
Yeah. So it's perfect for me.
That's right. So this is a Ben Cooper costume for Boba Fett. Kids of a certain age will all remember Halloween costumes from Ben Cooper. But the best thing about them that's so funny was that they always had to put the character that you were right there, and usually some name too, so that, you know, the people that you're trick-or-treating to don't have to ask every time, oh, who are you? It just says, you know, Jaws.
Oh, I see you're Boba Fett. That's nice, honey.
Yes, exactly. So there were several Star Wars Ben Cooper costumes. They had the license all the way through the original trilogy, and this is then the first one available for what would have been the Empire Strikes Back. So you can see they still use the Star Wars box, but have the Empire Strikes Back sticker on the box. It doesn't even really look like Boba Fett.
Yeah, it looks more like Jango Fett.
It does kind of
That's true.
That is actually the rocket firing Boba Fett that would have appeared on the backs of action figures that were available at the time that touted get the new action figure Boba Fett coming with a firing missile, and they would have used that as the imagery to use on the costume itself here, and to make the mask for as well.
Where did you acquire this piece?
This was at an antique mall.
Obviously, this one's never been worn because the armholes they immediately tear, the ribbon's gone, the mask crushed.
Yes.
Halloween these days has become a much bigger holiday than it used to be back then.
Well, this is a really interesting piece, Duncan. Thanks for bringing it. Steve, what did you bring?
Let's see.
Did you bring what I think you brought?
So this is one of the most iconic pieces in the world of Star Wars collectibles. It's a version of the never sold commercially rocket-firing Boba Fett, the first of two main variations. This was an initial product testing sample, and there were probably a couple of thousands of these.
Wow.
Because they would constantly try to see if they could break it. The locking mechanism was very breakable. And so they changed it to a J slot where the piece not only came down like a backward L, but went up like a backward J.
Okay.
But that still wasn't good enough because there were product safety issues. While Mattel was producing Battlestar Galactica toys, missiles from a Cylon Raider choked a baby, and there were other reports of kids choking on these missiles. And so the U.S. instituted the choke tube size.
Something that would shoot out had to be bigger than what this size.
Yes, absolutely. But these were holy grail items for so many people. People were not really happy when they got their Boba Fett and it wasn't rocket firing. Note to consumers, originally our Star Wars Boba Fett action figure was designed to have a spring-launched rocket. The launcher has been removed from the product for safety reasons. If you are dissatisfied with the product, please return it to us and we will replace it with any Star Wars mini action figure of your choice. And there are a lot of collectors who say, well, they are sure that they got one of the missile-firing Boba Fett's in the mail-away box. And it got buried in their backyard and they moved. Their dog ate the head off of it, so they threw it away. They set it on fire. But
I've heard rumors like that, actually.
Yeah, and those are all not true.
So who here actually also owns a rocket firing?
Three.
Wow.
A couple. Yeah.
The reason I've got three is because I've got a J
Three?
slot, a J slot, an L slot, and one that for some reason its torso is half black. No idea why. But
Everyone talks about when they're talking about expensive Star Wars figures, it's always this one. What is considered the most valuable Star Wars figure?
That's a great question.
pretty sure the highest price I've ever heard for a actual plastic figure was a Boba Fett, rocket firing Fett.
I think
Yeah, which is
yeah.
interesting given that there's probably 100 out there or so.
Right.
So that's a lot
high for
that's
prototypes.
high for prototypes.
Yeah.
But the demand for it is so extraordinarily high because it was such a well promoted mail away offer that just kids knew about it. It's just sort of the quintessential Star Wars Holy Grail, you know. And so for that reason, I think it just creates this crazy market price.
Yeah, without this guy, you wouldn't have the whole Mandalorian segments from the Clone Wars, or Jango Fett, or the Mandalorian characters from Rebels, or the Mandalorian series, and the movie that's coming out now.
And of course, with Jango Fett, you finally saw the rocket fire.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I've heard the rockets are strawberry flavored. Have you ever tried it?
I have licked it a couple of times, and I didn't. It was more raspberry.
Wait, what are we talking about?
That was the problem with the Galactica toys they were showing.
Well, on that note, let's switch to what Vic has brought. What do we have here?
Okay, what we have here are a set of photographs that were taken in November 1978. Lucasfilm had sent out the Boba Fett costume and an actor to wear it to the Kenner offices in Cincinnati, Ohio, so that they could take reference photos. Kenner had sent some designers out to LA to see Boba Fett and photograph him when he was in the all-white uniform. But now that he had a look that was close to, but not quite, what he would look like in The Empire Strikes Back, they needed some more references. In one of them, you'll notice there's a photographer taking pictures with a much fancier camera. Obviously, this is kind of blurry, snapshot, Instamatic type photography. Boba Fett happens to be in the exact same pose that you find on the action figure card back. So this photographer is the guy taking the photo that would wind up on the action figure card back.
The actor that's wearing this costume is who you haven't identified is the guy on the action figure card.
Is the guy on the action figure card.
That's a big mystery. Now, what's different about the costume in these photos that ultimately wound up in the film?
The main obvious difference is that his pauldrons in this costume and in the action figure are red and yellow. In The Empire Strikes Back, they're both green. And in Return of the Jedi, they're both red.
Like a maroon.
There are other differences if you want to get really nerdy, but that's the most obvious one.
Right.
So on the card back for the Boba Fett action figure, the image is in a star field. Is that a photographic element on there, or was it a photo art touch-up thing?
So most of the Kenner card backs began with a photograph, and then, this is back in the days before Photoshop, they'd airbrush out elements that they didn't want. In this case, the delightful 1970s orange carpet, and they would airbrush in things that they do want, like a star field.
Well, I think we've got a really interesting suite of pieces to discuss. There's one clear-cut winner potentially, but I don't know. I feel like there's some really interesting other options here today. So let's dive into it. 4 incredible Star Wars artifacts, but only one can be saved for future generations in the Saga Vault. Gus brought an action figure sketch of Boba Fett. Duncan had a Ben Cooper Halloween costume. Steve came with the big guns, the rocket-firing Boba Fett figure. And Vic's private photos of Boba Fett at the Kenner offices show what would become an iconic action figure. So does anybody have a reason why we shouldn't just give it to Steve now and not even talk about it?
I might go ahead and toss out the Rocket Fett. It is historical, but it's ubiquitous also.
Rocket Fett is obviously a legendary thing in Star Wars collecting
But it's
circles.
not one of a kind.
But it's not one of a kind. Yeah.
All 3 of the others are more pre-production, behind-the-scenes thing, whereas the one I brought is the only merchandise piece.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
Well, would you want a Star Wars memorabilia museum without a rocket-firing Fett?
got 6 more besides we'll throw yours out. So
Part of the thing is I always want something that you had as a kid. I want something that you wish you had as a kid, something you never knew existed until you just saw it today. And I want something that's visually eye-catching. Sadly, my photos don't satisfy the eye-catching thing. They're blurry photos. Duncan's costume has the eye-catching element. And it probably is the thing that if you're our age, maybe you did have as a kid.
I think it's important that we have the rocket-firing Fett because of the yearning for one among so many collectors.
I think that they all represent Mandalorian very, very well.
Okay, good. Well, if we stick to technically Mandalorian, Boba Fett isn't a Mandalorian, is he? His armor is,
True.
but he is not a Mandalorian. Let's jump into the actual vote. Let's do it. All right?
All right, let's do it.
Let's go back.
I don't want to give anything away, but I'm voting for Boba Fett.
That's right. Well, I'm voting for a non-Mandalorian.
Grogu? I guess he's sort of a Mandalorian.
He is.
He's more Mandalorian than Boba Fett.
That's right.
That's a good point. He's the only Mandalorian that was on this table.
All right. Gus first?
Yes. The obvious sort of choice would be the rocket-firing Boba Fett. But when I think of the vault, I want to go for like when you combine sort of the history of the evolution of Boba Fett and the one-of-a-kind historical pieces. I voted for my own, the Boba Fett art, because of that reason.
That makes sense. That's a good reason. Duncan?
Absolutely makes sense. And despite what I said earlier, I voted for the Rocket Fett. I think it is a quintessential piece. I don't find it to be the most interesting of them, but I think it has to be what's in the vault.
Okay, that's a fair point.
Well, after Vic convinced me, I voted for the Fett costume because it is the most eye-catching, and a lot of kids would have had it.
What's interesting, we have everybody's voting on something different. We have to see what Vic does here. Vic?
Well, despite the fact that I convinced you with my argument, I voted for the Rocket Fett because it's Abraham Lincoln's hat. And if you don't know what that means, make sure you watch all of our episodes.
That's right.
It will become clear.
And I voted for the costume because I have pictures of myself in the Darth Vader costume when I was a kid, and those are some of the best memories I have. So there's so much nostalgia connected to that. I just felt like it should be in the vault. So nice. I think we have a tie based on our votes here. So if we're not finished, we still have to get the audience's vote, which honestly is the most important. And your vote counts just as much as each one of ours. So check out our QR code and visit the website where you can vote for the Star Wars artifact that you want to save inside the Saga Vault. And then next week, we'll be back with a live episode to reveal the winner, and you won't want to miss that. Let your voice be heard. Join the fight to save one of these incredible artifacts from the dustbin of history.